Before we head into a little summer break, we'll get started with Jake Curtis.
Yeah, Justin, what do you think of the proposal to have a 12-team playoff?
Well, I think expanding the playoffs, I think a good idea, and the different models that have been discussed. I'm sure there's, kind of give and take on each of those. I'm not in those discussions. However, I am in favor of expanding it and then finding the right number. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of dialogue on that. So,
what do you think about Scott's?
Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, what do you think about Scott's proposal to give the Power 5 teams automatic berth?
Whose proposal?
Larry.
Yeah, I think the conference champion from each conference, that makes sense to me. Now, we also probably would have to discuss scheduling and how to find some scheduling parity throughout the conferences. I think that would be an important step as well. But that makes sense to me. Again, I know there's probably a lot of discussion and different thoughts on that, but I think that would, if there's parity in the scheduling, and to have the conference champions included would make sense.
All right, Scott, that leads to the question of it's just preliminary discussions now about reducing the conference schedule to 8 games and not having the divisions.
Yeah, that would probably be one way to move forward. Somebody's going to have to change. I don't know who's going to change. I mean, again, these are not decisions I'm going to be making. I mean, I'm honestly, Jake, I'm really focused on our recruiting weekend and our fall camp schedule. But I do think it's important to expand the playoff. I know there's a lot of dialogue on, the pros and cons of the different models. I do think scheduling, having parity in the scheduling is really important. And how we get to that, I don't have an answer to whether the Pac-12 changes the conference game model in terms of how many we're playing or the other conferences add. But somewhere, I think you got to find a balance so everybody's scheduling in a similar way.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll move to Jim McGill.
Hey, Justin. So you guys have not been able to have recruits on campus for like 15 months until June. Is it a huge relief? And how are you feeling about how things are developing? You've obviously had a lot of high targets commit and a lot of interest. Can you talk a little bit about how that process is playing out and how nice it is to be able to get into that rhythm again?
It's going really well. It's nice to have them all be able to come and see us in person. It's been a long time since we've been able to host people. Our staff and coaching staff and support staff have done an amazing job, in the past 14 months of educating people virtually and recruiting virtually, which is a challenge, but there's nothing like having them on campus. And so it's been really, really nice to have them here. And it's been very, very positive. There's really good momentum in recruiting right now.
Thanks.
Okay, Trace Travers.
Yeah, I wanted to ask in that recruiting vein, what's changed about how you guys have official visits? Is it like what you guys have done or what you did before everything happened? Or are there certain things you've had to adjust, certain ways of better displaying information that you found?
For the most part, it's what we had done in the past. There are a couple things protocol wise that we have to do a little bit differently. But we feel like, when the recruits and their families come to campus, we're able to do what we need to do to educate them on Cal and give them the appropriate amount of time on each kind of aspect of the program and tours and things like that. So it's not exactly like it was before, but it's pretty close.
And Cal Athletics announced earlier that they'll be having full capacity in Memorial Stadium this fall. I guess, what's your reaction or thought on that?
It's awesome. That's my reaction.
All right. Thank you.
Sometimes one word says it all. We'll move to Jeff Ferrata.
Yeah, Justin, just give us an update on how Brett Johnson's doing physically, but also just kind of, we're a couple months into his, recovery from the accident. How's he doing emotionally? Is he feeling okay? Or do you talk to him very often, and just kind of where he's at?
He's doing well. He spent a good amount of time at home with his family as he was resting and recuperating. He'll be here with us shortly, and he's doing great. I mean, considering the significance of the injury, he's doing really, really well. It's obviously a challenge when you have an injury like that, physically, but also mentally, and things you have to overcome. But Brett is an ambitious guy. He's very driven. He's extremely tough. So, not only physically, but mentally. So he will be a person that responds to all those adversities in a really strong way. But he'll be with us here shortly, back on campus and moving forward with his rehabilitation.
As best you can tell at this point, is he still on track to be able to play a year from now?
Yeah, I mean, he is in as good a position as he could possibly be in, based on what I know from the doctors and the rehabilitation folks. Yeah.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Then we'll go to David Bush from Barron Center.
Yeah, Coach, I know, as you say, your main focus is recruiting and game plans and things like that. But has there been any discussion at all about the ramifications of the Supreme Court decision this week and its possible impact in the future on the football programs?
Yeah, that comes up, obviously, because it impacts us. There's still many unknowns. Our administration is actively engaging with in discussions with the conference office, the NCAA, directly and indirectly, the state government. So they really have those discussions and relay the information to me. Obviously, we read the Supreme Court ruling on the Alston case. There was also some commentary regarding NIL and compensation in that. Now, what results of that ruling is going to be a lot of, articles, talk radio, news, and everybody's got their opinion on how this is going to move forward, when in fact, I don't know that anybody has the answer right now. There's still things that are going to happen, with more cases, and also guidelines from the NCAA and the states themselves. So we're prepared. I'm being kept up to date by our administration, but I really don't spend a ton of time going down the rabbit hole one way or the other, because you can just waste a lot of emotional energy on that. So we are prepared to the appropriate amount here at in the football office, and waiting for further instruction.
Thanks.
Yeah, Jeff Ferrata.
Yeah, sort of on that same topic, Justin, on the NIL thing in particular, we don't really have a picture of what it's going to be, but I'm wondering, what do you expect? How do you expect this to all sort of sort out in the long term, whether that's a year or 2 or 3 or 4 from now? And how do you feel about it? Do you think it's the right thing? Do you think it's going in the right direction for student athletes to get the compensation that they're striving for right now?
Yeah. That's a difficult, one part of that's easy for me to answer, and the other part is very difficult. One, I think it's good for the student athletes, and we support that. I think things are going to change, and to what degree, we don't quite know yet. I'm certainly in favor of the student athletes, being taken care of in an appropriate way. And I think there's got to be some guidelines. So really, it's just like the variables are significant, and it's a complex issue. And I think if you try and boil it down to, one bullet point, whether you agree or disagree, I think you're really kind of missing it. So it's a complex issue. There's a lot to be considered, and things are certainly going to change. And to what degree, we will see.
I agree that it's certainly a very complicated topic, and I don't want to trivialize it. But do you have any sense in your head what college football might look like 5 or 10 years from now?
No, I mean, not really. I think it's just things are going to change. Things are going to change. And to what degree, I'm not quite sure. I really am not. And so I think it's one of those things that, we're going to, I kind of mentioned it before. I mean, you could sit here and kind of go down each road and think about the implications of certain decisions that will be made and how that's going to impact college football and college athletics, and how many teams, and to what degree these teams can move forward, and how it impacts other sports, how it impacts the NCAA, how it impacts, small college athletics. I mean, there's just a lot to it. And so I've thought, I have those discussions once in a while, but again, there's just so much to be considered that I try not to, it can kind of take away from what you're doing today. So I'll leave that up to you all, and I'll be prepared to adjust and keep my knees bent for our program moving forward. But it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see how things change.
Last thing for me on this, and then we can move on. But do you anticipate, is there even a possibility that the big schools in college football may break off from the NCAA? And the NCAA seems to be kind of dragging its feet on the NIL thing. And I'm sure the larger schools, it's apples and oranges with the big schools and the little schools, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you think that everything's on the table still?
I do. I think both topics you just brought up, I wouldn't be surprised. I guess I'd put it that way. So, I think we're waiting for guidance from the NCAA, and it's June 24th, and things are happening quickly. So we'll see where that goes. But I think it's such a complex issue, and these are significant decisions that are going to be made. But what I can guarantee you is it's not going to be the same. Something's going to change, and I think kind of everything is on the table right now, just from where I sit. So we'll see.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll go to Jake Curtis.
Yeah, Justin, do you have a clear picture of what the training camp is going to look like logistically? And will it be like 2019 or 2020, or do you know yet?
In what way, Jake? Practice protocols and numbers and all that? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, logistics of.
Yeah, so it'll be more 2019. Yes. And we have, I'm actually just finished it up today, our fall camp grid and what we're planning on doing, practice days, how we're going to, our practice schedule, our practice days, which days we're doing what. So I'm actually just finished that today. So have a real clear picture of what it's going to look like. And we anticipate moving forward with that.
Okay, Trace Travers.
Yeah, first, what's the green hat that's behind you? I've been trying to figure out what that is for the last 10 minutes or so.
We had a group of coaches from Mexico City, who coached college football in Mexico City, that came and visited us a couple of years ago. And they came for like 2 or 3 years in the spring, and they'd come up and study and do maybe spend a week with us and study football. And we'd spend time with them. And so that's their team. They gifted me a cap. So I said it right there next to my Marshawn bobblehead.
Fantastic. And on a more serious note, Brett was mentioned earlier, how you guys have a lot of inexperience on the defensive line. How are you kind of moving to, counter that at this moment, whether it's adding more bodies or just working with the guys that you have?
Both. Brett's injury is significant. Obviously, we're concerned for his well-being and his rehab. It impacts the D-line, but we're really focused, like all positions and all players, developing the players that are here and open to adding players who weren't on the roster last year. So it'll be a combination of both, but we feel really good about that room. Obviously, it's difficult losing a player like Brett, but we're eager to see the development of the guys on the roster.
Is Gabe Cherry back on your roster?
Gabe is not on the roster any longer. No.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, excuse me, Jim McGill?
Yeah, Coach. It's an interesting situation with how the press is starting to portray the season. Obviously, they have their prognostications, and they typically tend to base it on the previous year. And this last season was a very strange one. Starting to see Cal being kind of underrated. I think Cal fans, and I think probably the program, has expectations that this is going to be a pretty good season. How do you approach that with the players? Do you completely ignore it? Do you use it to put a chip on their shoulder? What's the approach with that?
With the prognosticators?
Yeah, you start to hear like Cal's.
I think it's great that people are interested in college football. That's what makes college football so great, is the interest, and people have opinions, and that's all fine. However, our attitude towards what we're doing doesn't really change, no matter what the opinions may be. So we feel really good about our team. I think we got some really good veterans who played a lot of football. We have a number of seniors that are coming back to play their final season. Then we have some very talented underclassmen who, some have been on the roster and some are just getting that we think can really do some good things. So we have extremely high expectations for ourselves, and we know it's going to be a really competitive schedule, as it always is. But regardless of the other experts out there, we kind of just do our thing.
Have you heard anything about Luke Beckett's status about getting back with the program?
Yeah, there's a couple outlying kind of things and hoops to jump through, but we'll hope to have an announcement soon. Yeah, but nothing to report today.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Jake Curtis.
Yeah, Justin, how would you characterize the battle for the number 2 quarterback spot? Is it wide open? Do you sort of have a pecking order in mind?
Yeah, coming out of spring, there's a couple guys that did some good things, finishing up spring football with Zach and Robbie, but we've added some new faces to that room. I think the best way to categorize it is it would be wide open. Yeah.
Hey, is there anybody else? Probably next time we'll see Coach is in media days in late July. So you get him in the next 5 minutes if you got him. Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, to get back to what Jim alluded to there with Luke, can you tell us anything about I take it he wants to come back and play another year, and what are the hoops he has to jump through to potentially make that happen, and how would that potentially impact you guys?
Yeah, be great. And Luke's situation is really unique. I mean, that's unprecedented, as a lot of last year was, to transfer when there was no season, or it was claimed there was going to be no season. Luke transferred. We fully supported him. The 180 that the conference made, and by that time Luke was, playing at Boston College, and so he finished the season there and had an interest in coming back. We were all for it, and now it's really just NCAA. That's the final piece of the puzzle. It's in the NCAA's hands.
But he can theoretically come back on the basis that everybody gets to play last year over again, right?
Correct.
And I take it you would welcome him.
Correct. Yeah. It's really everything is moving forward in the right direction, and it's in the hands of the NCAA at this point.
Thank you.
David Bush.
Yeah, Coach, could you just a quick assessment of how you see the defensive backfield? You've got a couple of real veterans in there and then a whole bunch of young guys. What's your feeling about the DBs?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. You got some veteran guys with Josh Drayden, Elijah. Let's see here. Daniel's played quite a bit of football for us. You know, Chiggy's played a fair amount, and then there's some really talented young guys. So I think fall camp's going to be very, very competitive in the defensive backfield. Craig Woodson's another guy that had a really good spring. That group is improving each and every day. They've done a nice job at the beginning of summer. They're kind of finishing spring workouts and the start of summer workouts, so they look good. And we think there's some really talented guys in that group. Just need some more work.
Hey guys, final. Anybody else with the final question? Give you about 5 seconds in the chat here.
You going fishing or what are you doing, Justin?
No, that's possible. That's possible.
It's possible, huh?
Yeah, that's possible. Likely a couple times.
Have fun.
All right. Appreciate it.